Welcome to Politics con Acento, where we break down the issues that matter for our community from the place where it happens, Washington, D.C. En inglés, en español o Spanglish, porque nuestra comunidad merece entender lo que realmente está en juego. Este es nuestro primer episodio y cada semana nos podrás encontrar en tu plataforma favorita con nuevas entrevistas y temas. Today we are heading west all the way to California for a one-on-one with Governor Gavin Newsom, quien nos habla directamente sobre Proposición 50. La iniciativa que podría tener implicaciones determinantes en la política nacional y el futuro de las familias latinas, con la redistribución del mapa electoral del estado para tener más escaños en el Congreso. Almost 7 million Latinos are registered to vote in California. La medida de los demócratas propone transferir temporalmente la autoridad de redistribución de la Comisión Independiente a la legislatura estatal. Algunos le llaman gerrymandering. What does that mean? Is a political manipulation of electoral district boundaries to advantage a party or a group. And Texas has already done it. Ahí fue aprobado por los republicanos de manera directa. En Missouri, Utah e Indiana también se han visto estos esfuerzos. Pero a ver, this is not only a Republican plan. Los demócratas van por la misma línea, pero de diferente forma. Y de eso hablamos. This is a conversation about democracy, identity, and the Latino vote con el gobernador Gavin Newsom. Well, thank you so much, Governor, for taking the time for this conversation and for opening the doors of this beautiful middle school for this interview. Well, right now we are in a perfect moment to talk about Proposition 15, and I wanna start by saying that a lot of Californians and especially Latino voters, they are concerned, they are overwhelmed about the political tension, the news cycle. They really are worried about what's coming next for the state in America, but at the same time, they have a very deep desire to understand how decisions can shape their communities. Right. So that's what I want to start with that, because as of October 7th, Californians, including many Latino voters, have already begun casting their ballots. Right. Do you believe that voters have enough information at this point to make an informed decision about the impact that the new districts could have on their communities?
Yeah, well, I do, for a number of reasons. Recognizing it's a very short election. It's a special election. It ends on November 4th. As you suggested, the election's already begun because we have early voting, mail-in ballots. Those ballots have already gone out and people are already receiving the ballots. But one of the things that I think is significant about this redistricting effort, it's the first of its type in the country. The voters are being able to approve their own maps. There has never been redistricting where the voters themselves can decide on the maps. So it's democratic, it's transparent in that respect, and I'll remind people it's temporary. We're responding to what Donald Trump did as he tried to rig this election in 2026 by calling Greg Abbott in Texas. And he said he's quote unquote entitled to 5 seats, and Texas gave him 5 seats. Only in response to that are we temporarily changing our independent redistricting commission, 4 congressional races for 3 cycles, and then we revert back to the original intent of the voters. So I think we are in a very good position to win, and I think people understand this is not about lines on a map. This is about drawing line against Trump and Trumpism and the terror that he has distilled in the Latino community. Masked men, people in unmarked cars, people walking to school, walking their dogs, going to church, and disappearing. Families being torn apart through terror and authoritarian acts by the President of the United States. That's why Prop 50 is so important, and that's why I'm confident we're going to win.
Economy is the main concern for Latinos and the whole country. And with the affordability crisis we have right now, especially for Latinos who will make up nearly a third of the electorate, how do you justify $220 million in this special election when some may believe that maybe we can use the money to address immediate needs?
Well, if we lose Prop 50, we may lose our country. We may lose the House of Representatives in perpetuity. There's no check on Donald Trump. Donald Trump has not only attacked the Latino community with unprecedented tactics, but he has cut billions and billions of dollars because there's no congressional oversight. He is unmoored, unchecked by the law or traditions. This is about power, and he's just beginning that process. He's cutting the biggest cut in healthcare in U.S. history, the biggest increase in healthcare costs coming this January under the Trump administration. What Prop 50 is about a check, about balances, about oversight, and it's about Congress doing their job and leveling the playing field. So it is a very modest cost to not only save our democracy, but to provide that kind of oversight and accountability so he doesn't run roughshod over education, run roughshod over our economy. You've seen what the tariffs have done to this economy. Inflation's up. Look at the cost of beef. Look at the costs of coffee under the Trump administration. He said he was going to make us wealthier and healthier. We're poorer and sicker in just 8 months. Prop 50 is about reclaiming this country and reclaiming that system of checks and balances. And so it's deeply connected to the issue of cost of living as well.
What can you say to the 35% of Californians who voted to have an independent commission to handle redistricting?
I was one of them. I'm someone that believes in independent redistricting. On Prop 50, we actually principally assert, it's a policy question that's on Prop 50, that we support national redistricting. But we can't have one hand tied behind our back. As the other side has decided not to play by any rules, while they're changing the game midstream by their literally redistricting mid-decade, literally changing the maps for Republicans in Texas, in Missouri, about to do it in Indiana and Florida. California has to fight fire with fire. We simply have to recognize this is an emergency, and we're responding to this emergency in a temporary manner, but we're also asserting a desire to see national independent redistricting.
Around 7 million Latinos will be able to vote in this election. What can you say to them when they are still wondering how will they get benefit from this election?
Well, they're going to benefit because we finally will have a Speaker Jeffries, so we can get some oversight, and we can then ultimately get some support, particularly here in Southern California, $39 billion for our recovery efforts. This is unprecedented. I hope people appreciate. It's been 9 months, almost 9 months since the devastating fires. And the President of the United States has said not a word to support the people in our recovery. $39 billion was asked of the federal government. It's pro forma. It's tradition in this country. Red states, blue states, Democratic administration, Republican, to be there in a time of need and emergency. And the President of the United States, the only word he said was no, because he didn't like our politics. Speaker Johnson said hell no, because he doesn't like our politics. Do you know what I was proud of? I was proud as a taxpayer, not as a governor, to be there for Louisiana after the devastation of the hurricanes, to be there for Florida. I hope we're there. I hope the President of the United States has the back of Texans because of those floods and what occurred. 127 people lost their lives. I want to be there for the American people, but the President of the United States does not want to. Speaker Johnson doesn't want to because we're a blue state, because we embrace our diversity, because we have too many Latinos, because we provide health care regardless of immigration status, because we provide legal support for people who have mixed status families that are concerned that a member of their family has disappeared, that we provide food stamps. They don't like that. And so they're trying to assault this state, and they're trying to take away money, and they're breaking the law. The tariffs are illegal. The lower courts have adjudicated that. It's illegal what he's done with the National Guard. Federal courts in California have adjudicated that. This is an unprecedented moment in U.S. history. We can lose this country unless we stand up to this president, and that's, again, what Prop 50 fundamentally is all about.
Governor, last night I was scrolling down on your Instagram account and I saw this video where you state that Mike Johnson's super PAC spent $5 million in a no Prop 50 campaign, and former Speaker Kevin McCarthy $1 million. That's a lot of money. Do you still you can win?
Well, and by the way, part of Speaker Johnson's PAC was Elon Musk, who's no on 50. It's Donald Trump. It's the former right-wing speaker from Bakersfield, by the way, that supported a bill that sold out his own constituents by cutting their health care with a big, beautiful bill, increased their health care costs, cut food stamps in his own backyard, Kevin McCarthy. They don't care about you. They do not care about the Latino community. Quite the contrary. Listen to their words and their actions. So they put in tens of millions of dollars. One donor that has gone after the LGBT community, one donor who's a big Trump supporter, this guy Munger, has put in $32.5 million. One donor alone. Here's what's different. We have over 1 million individual contributors, averaging less than $30 contributing. We've raised $33 million online in small dollar amounts from all 50 states. It's the biggest grassroots campaign in California history, and we put it together in just 7.5 weeks because I think people understand what's at stake. And people are putting that stake in the ground. And I think they understand that this is about the assault on the rule of law. This is about a system of checks and balances. This is about the core values of our democracy, and it's an assault on our diverse communities. Because at the end of the day, what this all has in common is 3 letters, DEI. They don't like the diversity in this country. They don't like the pursuit of equity. And they have been aggressively assaulting communities of color to a degree that we have never experienced in at least my lifetime. We talk about authoritarianism. It looks very different for someone like me. I'm very lucky. But if I'm living in East LA, authoritarianism is here. I don't think that. When I sit there with a young kid whose parents both disappeared, that went to a food processing plant that they've been going to for 20 years, and their window was smashed. Mom and dad disappeared. The kid didn't even know how to get back into his home in Ventura County. He had no brothers and sisters or cousins. He's sitting there crying. He's lost his family. He's American, speaks perfect English, goes to the public schools. Trump doesn't give a damn about him. That's what Prop 50 is about. It's about stepping up and pushing back against this bully. It is not the rule of Don. It is not the rule of Donald Trump. It's the rule of law.
Can you assure the Latino community that they will be better represented if they vote yes?
Oh, unquestionably, because what it's doing is leveling the playing field that gives us a chance in 2026 to take back the House of Representatives. Right now, the House of Representatives is supine, meaning they've just rolled over and they're plain dead. Yes, and, Mr. Trump, what else do you need? Yes, and. Speaker Johnson, zero oversight, zero accountability. Again, what is this government shutdown all about? Fundamentally, it's distilled, the essence of it comes down to massive tax breaks for corporations and billionaires that never even needed or asked for them. In order to pay for a part of that, they had to have the biggest cuts in healthcare in U.S. history. And we're about to experience the biggest premium increases in U.S. history. And for Californians, 600,000 Californians are about to lose their health care in January on the health exchange, Obamacare, because of these premium increases. The average will go up almost 100%, 97%. Some people will see triple the cost of their health care. They won't be able to afford it. They quite literally will drop health care because of Donald Trump and his pursuits. So again, Prop 50, level the playing field, giving us an equal chance of taking back the House of Representatives and to get this country back on track.
And I ask that, Governor, because the Latino community feel in some way betrayed from each party. So they really want to make sure that what they are hearing now from you is not something that they will regret in the future.
Yeah, look, I've had their back. I've been back over and over and over again. I just signed the nation-leading law as it relates to take off your mask. Take off your mask. Identify who you are. Due process. Had the back of the community, been out calling out against the federalization of the National Guard, the militarization of American streets. He put 700 active duty Marines. He didn't send them overseas. He sent them right here in Los Angeles. And we called that out. We litigated. We're pushing back. We have 41 lawsuits against him. At the same time, I did a special session. And who are the biggest beneficiaries of the special session? The Latino community. Because in the special session, We set aside tens of millions of dollars to help support our rapid response network, to help support due process, to help support lawyers being made available to people that have had loved ones taken or disappeared because of activities in ICE. We've done more on healthcare than any state in the United States for our Latino community. We continue to be there. We have a lot more work to do. I'm not naive about that. But he's the one that has betrayed the community. Democrats in this state have had the backs of the community.
And now that you mentioned the troops, President Trump has mentioned many times that he could invoke the Insurrection Act. What could you do if such an order is extended to California?
We're on the other side of total. I mean, we'll have lost our country if he does that. You know, some people have accused me of being a little hyperbolic when I said in June that the National Guard, when they were federalized, 4,000, not 400, 4,000 of our brave men and women. These are doctors, these are librarians, our National Guard. These are firefighters. These are sheriffs. These are doctors. These are our neighbors. And they're used now as political pawns to put a mask on, no longer embraced and celebrated as they were here in LA during the fire recovery. But now people are scared to see these remarkable neighbors being used as a political pawn, seeing them militarized on the streets of American cities. They're taking Californians to Oregon, to Portland. But if you cite under the Insurrection Act, if the President of the United States actually does that, now we're on the other side. That is a break the glass scenario for seditious acts, for insurrections. That is a worst case scenario. And we're not even, the fact that he even uttered that is extraordinary, and it should put a chill down people's spine. The one thing that we were successful with, and it's meaningful, was Judge Breyer, a federal judge here in California, in Newsom versus Trump. That's the case. He determined that the actions of the president federalizing our National Guard were illegal under posse comitatus. The Insurrection Act specifically nullifies posse comitatus. And that's why the Insurrection Act, that's why he's even uttering it, because he knows what he's done to date is illegal, but it wouldn't be if he invoked the Insurrection Act. That is a very scary prospect.
Do you still trust in the judicial system and the courts? Because even though you've had wins, there are also other cases where he has won.
Yeah, look, he's stacked very effectively. He stacked the federal courts in his first 4 years. And so some of these appellate court decisions haven't necessarily gone away, but we've won the vast majority. We've won the vast majority. What I'm most worried about is the Supreme Court. They have been using what they call the shadow docket. And this, I mean, what more evidence you need of the importance of Prop 50? I should have started here. Donald Trump now has sanctioned racial profiling against the Latino community. And the Supreme Court, using the shadow docket, said to the president, you have the right to racially profile Latino people on the basis of not just skin color, but now you have the basis on your accent, on the language you speak, or where you congregate. That's pretense. No due process. They can grab you off the streets, masked up, no identification, and you could disappear for 2-3 weeks without any oversight. In the United States of America, that was sanctioned racial profiling by the United States Supreme Court under this administration. I hope people wake up. I cannot impress upon people the imperative. It's not about being a Democrat or Republican. It's about being an American and caring about these enduring values of our founding fathers, the best of the Roman Republic and Greek democracy. That's what our founding fathers took, the best of that. Co-equal branches of government, the rule of law, popular sovereignty. It's all on the line. And so again, we're drawing a line with Prop 50 and we're fighting back. And no other state's doing it. Well, I mean, I'm really proud that California has gotten this far, but it means nothing unless we, the people, don't show up and turn out the vote on November 4th.
How do you envision an ideal immigration policy one that secures the border but also reflects California's humanitarian and economic values?
Well, we do have to do, look, Democratic Party failed to secure the border. We have to own that. We did on the last administration, period, full stop. That's self-evident. Any objective observer, and by the way, that's not me saying this as a revelatory statement. We put a lid on a lot of what was happening during the Biden administration. I opened in 5 different centers and 3 different counties, in Imperial County and San Diego County and LA County. We opened these migrant facilities, Riverside, we opened migrant centers because we were dealing with a lot of pressure on local government to address that cross-border activity because it wasn't being addressed by the federal government. We invested over $1.5 billion of state money for those centers, working with nonprofits, Jewish Family Services and Catholic Charities, who did an amazing job. And we were very vocal with the Biden administration. You know, this is the largest land port in the world, San Ysidro. It's the largest activity, the most significant activity. So California was disproportionately impacted. And we were frustrated with that. That said, the Democratic Party needs to own that moving forward. But we also need to own the fact that the economy of California is the 4th largest economy in the world for a reason. Because 27% of us are foreign born, because we practice pluralism, because people from all around the world come here for riches and new beginnings, because we get the best and the brightest first-round draft choices around the world, because they feel like they belong here, they feel seen, they feel heard. It's a point of pride that we're the most diverse state in the world's most diverse democracy. And I don't say that from the perspective of farm workers in the Central Valley. I also say it in the context of farm workers in the Central Coast, as well as folks in Silicon Valley, from valley to valley. H-1B visas and what the president's trying to do in that respect. The impact and our ability to get the best students from around the world, to keep them in the state of California, in the United States. It's what separates our game from the game played anywhere else. It is because of our diversity that this state dominates in every major economic category. We have no peers. We're a donor state. The money Donald Trump is taking from California is money we gave to the federal government. Texas is a taker state. They took in $71.1 billion the same year we provided the federal government $83.3 billion more than we received. That's the vibrancy of California. And it's in that diversity that our economic output is derived. And I think the Trump administration's vandalization, not just of the immigration policy as it relates to illegal or irregular immigration, but what he's doing to legal immigration is a huge under-focused story in this country, and it's going to have profound economic impacts in this nation.
H-1B visas. What's going to be the impact?
No state's more impacted than California. I mean, look we want the best and the brightest. We've got a formula for success. I mean, it starts right here. It's education. These conveyor belts for talent, the UCs, the CSUs. It's about pushing the boundary of discovery with our research and development. We have 18% of the world's R&D in California. Only Germany and China can lay claim to more research and development. But part of that conveyor belt talent is an immigration policy that gets, again, the best and the brightest. And H-1Bs are a big part of that. You look at some of the most iconic companies, some of the most iconic leaders, Elon Musk, Jerry Yang, came here, H-1Bs. You look, I mean, it's a point of pride. These companies from India to China, other parts of the globe, from Russia, it's already had a devastating impact. And you hear that. I'm hearing that from company leaders, many of them that are quiet, some that I think are just complicit because they're scared to death of this administration because they think the administration will attack them. And that's another thing that's happened in this country. Crony capitalism is finding its way, and we're seeing the nationalization of great American companies like Intel, and we're seeing people sell out in ways that are pretty shameful, and that's a separate and equal conversation, perhaps.
Governor, in less than a year, President Trump has reversed or rewritten dozens of long-standing policies across multiple areas. If you had the chance, would you undo those changes?
Well, it depends on what it is. Look, His tariffs are illegal. California is the first state to sue him under that. These tariff policies are wrecking this economy, wrecking our relationship to our allies around the rest of the globe. They're absurd. The Bolsonaro tariff of 50% in Brazil, it has no economic basis whatsoever. It's petulance, political petulance by the president. This coffee is now costing us, it's a 50% tariff, but it's already up 20.9% year to date. And everybody is feeling that. It has no basis in economic reality. That said, I'm not against tariff policy being surgically and strategically deployed. So when you talk about erasing everything he's done, I think it's more nuanced than that. It's not a binary. I think there are some policies that should be pursued, but with much more sophistication than they currently are being pursued by this administration. But these tariff policies are failing. Inflation that was cooling is now growing. Unemployment, they're lucky. These unemployment numbers just didn't come back out. You saw the ADP, the payroll numbers. You saw they had to redo all the prior numbers a month ago. I mean, this economy is starting to slow down in a pretty profound and consequential way. In every category, Donald Trump's approval rating is underwater, including immigration and border policy, which used to be a strength of his because of his abuse of what's happening in Chicago, the abuse of what's happening in Portland, the abuse that was demonstrable here in LA. So there's plenty to unwind, but there are certain things that are wise, but you don't have a wise man implementing them in the White House.
If you want to make all those changes, Governor, you need to be in the power. How would you do that if you have said repeatedly that Donald Trump wants to continue in the government?
That's what Prop 50 is about. It's about power. What Donald Trump did, he knows he's going to lose the midterm elections. That's why he made the phone call to Greg Abbott. Why else would you make the call? Why do you need 5 votes, 5 seats? That's a position of weakness. Donald Trump is one thing. He's weakness masquerading as strength. Who else threatens the Insurrection Act? A weak person. Who else makes threats to incarcerate people like myself or the governor of Chicago or of Illinois? Who else makes those threats but a weak person? What he expected us to do in response to Texas is hold hand and have a protest. He expected us maybe to write an op-ed, have an interview, and say, boy, that's wrong. I don't think he expected us to fight fire with fire and put an initiative on the ballot to fight back. And so, again, Prop 50 is about power. It's about leveling the playing field, and it's about taking back the House of Representatives. To your question, if we're not successful next November, I fear that we will not have an open, free, and fair election again in this country. I believe that in my soul, that in 2028, we will not have a free and fair election if we're not successful in taking back the House of Representatives in 2026. And that starts with Prop 50 in 2025.
Will Prop 50 set the path for you to get to the White House?
It will set the path for us to take back the House of Representatives and get Speaker Jeffries into his position where he has real power and real influence, where we can have a system again of checks and balances, where we reinstore a sense of fairness and rule of law, not the rule of Don. It has nothing to do with anything beyond that.
Thank you, Governor. Before we finish, I want to ask you 2 questions that are related to your social media. I saw a post where you framed your relationship with Donald Trump as a romantic one. Yeah, using Taylor Swift's song.
I don't, no offense, Taylor, but it was a good song. By the way, it was a new song, day 1 of that song.
Is that actually romantic, the relationship?
I don't know. It was, I mean, you can judge those images for yourself.
Well, he seems like he's hugging you sometimes.
We have an I will say this. Everything I just said about him, I say this with some knowledge. You're talking to probably the only Democratic governor that has had an extended relationship with him for years and years and years, going back to his first term during the midst of COVID, where we worked incredibly collaboratively together. I've talked to the president on multiple occasions this year, and I was in the Oval Office, the first Democratic governor there, for almost 90 minutes a few months ago with the president. So I know him well. He knows me well. He's petulant. He's a child. Who else calls a governor new scum? not Newsom. He told me, he called me, he said, hey, Gavin, what do you think? That Newsom, pretty good, isn't it? I said, well, it's not. He goes, it's pretty original, right? I said, it's not original. I said, what do you mean? He goes, what do you mean it's not original? I said, in 7th grade, they called me Newsom. I said, you're 79 years old and called me Newsom. He's the President of the United States. It's a bit unbecoming. And then he immediately talked to me about how many mega hats he sold. He's not a serious person, but he has a very serious position. And that's why we are seriously positioning ourselves at this moment, and we're using social media to communicate. And to your point, we're being more aggressive. And we're trying to put a mirror up to Donald Trump. And at first, a few months ago when we shifted our social media, people didn't understand it fully. They're like, this is unbecoming. People on Fox News said it's unbecoming. And that was the mirror we were putting up. Why aren't you calling out the President of the United States, who's posting pictures of himself as the Pope, who's putting his photo up there on Mount Rushmore, who's running around cosplaying as if he's Superman with large biceps, or wrestling bears or animals? And we're looking at this like the emperor has clothes on. The emperor has no clothes. And so that's what the entire social media is about. It's a parody, but it's also about a mirror. And we're putting up the mirror against the most powerful man in the United States. And it comes with risks, and it comes with consequences. But I think it's worth the risk. And the consequence of not doing it, we'll lose our country.
The Super Bowl, Bad Bunny, are you happy with him?
I mean, Bad Bunny's next level great. And by the way, Bad Bunny comes from a beautiful part of this country called Puerto Rico. And I just want to remind my Republican friends, Puerto Ricans are not foreigners, they're Americans. Forgive me for reminding so many of my Republican friends something they should be well aware of, that they seemingly are not well aware of. That was a stroke of genius. Thank you to that was the committee, not the NFL itself, that made that judgment. But I wouldn't mess with Bad Bunny. That's like messing with Taylor Swift. Bad politics.
Perfect. Thank you, Governor. All right, mi gente de California, this is where it gets real. The story doesn't end with today's episode. It continues at the ballot box. Proposition 50 isn't just about redistricting maps or political lines. It's about representation, voz, y el futuro de nuestra democracia. I'm Stephanie Ochoa, and this was Politics con Acento. Nos vemos en el próximo episodio.